Well, good evening, everyone. As it says, this is a talk on portable HF antennas. So what do I mean by portable in this case? Pretty much any anything to do with small or easy to carry antennas and mounts, and really they're able to be used for hiking, backpacking, etc. So to carry on the person, really. No, that's not the total definition of portable HF antennas. It's quite a wide range, but I'm just looking at this sort of narrow section of it. So what I've been looking at is, it's for my own use really, something small, but also the ability to cover all of the hand bands from 40 meters through to 6. Nice to have ocean, but that's a bonus. It's not really realistic for antennas that size. They should be able to handle at least 10 watts power RF. So that's your typical max power for portable rigs like that one there, the IC705.
Sorry.
And preferably have the option to go to 100 watts. Doesn't have to, but all the better if you can. Really looking at is these sorts of antennas where they have a very, very small cross section. So when you set them up, the area that you have to worry about isn't very big. So you're not going to get into people's way. When, for example, the inverted V, for instance, could be a very light antenna, very portable, but you've got to tie down sort of these two dipole wings, and you're looking at quite a bit of an area that you have to be worried about. No guides will be required if they are very short ones, and the total length of the conductors, like the arms of dipole, whatever, about excluding counterpoises, making exception for them. So totaling about 5 meters or less, about 15 feet. They would require pretty much by definition loading coils, especially in using MF, sort of 7 megs of load, and some of the higher HF bands as well. So I'm looking at 4 antennas in particular, the sort of case studies of each of them. So the first one is the MFJ 1899T, which is this little thing here, which I'll go into a bit later. Something similar, Comet HFJ 350 toy box, or why they call it a toy box, something literal in Japanese, I think. The Midel JPC12, quite a popular vertical antenna, ground mounted vertical antenna, and also the body pole, which I've got here. Right. So what to look for in these types of antennas? I guess this is part of the reason for the talk is not so much be the last word, but for people to find out what they have to ask themselves when they're looking at these sorts of gadgets. So there are lots of aspects to consider when you're looking at these kinds of antennas. I think the most important one for me is how much ground space your antenna system takes up, be that conductor, your dipole, for instance, the mount, counterpoise, guides, etc. How much area that takes up. So, to sort of show an example what I mean, I suppose we could summits on the air at Gun, which is near Leek, Staffordshire, quite flat, lots of area to put radials, counterpoises around. You could probably get away with it in person fee. But at the Cloud, for instance, particularly on a sunny Saturday afternoon, it gets very busy, and you don't want people running into your equipment if you can avoid it, or taking up too much of their space. Weight is an issue, particularly if you want to walk long distance. But that said, a heavy antenna, quite a heavy antenna, maybe one that's a few kilos in weight, total with masts, for example, like the buddy pole here, uh, will make it quite stable. It should possibly stay up without any sort of external support like guy lines. And obviously, you want to take as less time as possible to erect and tune all that. You may want to take your time with that, or you just want to get it in there quick and operate and then get out again. Just how tough these antennas are. All the four here are pretty tough. They do have their weak points. Particularly, I make a lot of use of these sort of banana clips, which are quite easy to snap with a bit of leverage on them. So for the chap those sorts of things. The efficiency of the antenna, and this is one of the trade-offs you're going to have to make with these sorts of portable antennas, is that the proportion of the power that gets to your feed point and then is subsequently radiated will be relatively small. And obviously, you can electrically lengthen physically short antennas by using loading coils like here, but you are going to get reduced efficiency as a consequence. And therefore, ones like this is the MFJ 1899T. You're going to have to. That's only at 1.5 meters long, 15. What's that? 5 feet in length. On HF, you're well below the actual wavelengths that you're going to be using. Something. I mean, SWR is a bit of a. Some people have a bit of obsession with it, but generally you want, if you can, the SWR profile, the range between generally 2 to 1, at the lowest point and its highest point. Once you tune it, you want that to be at least cover the band that you want, if you can. You've got an example here of a profile there on 10 meters. Quite a good profile. I mean, it looks quite sharp, but it's looking over about 5 megahertz. So, can't really fault that one. Yeah, I mean, certainly with when Neil was talking about the Alex loop, that is very sharp. You do have a very small SWR bandwidth at any particular point along, wherever you are on the spectrum. And that will require retuning as you go up and down the band. But all these antennas generally shouldn't need that. And if you do, and I'm, like me, a bit lazy, like I was saying, just press the tuner button and it brings it in for you. So, not the end of the world. Also, the ease of reconfiguring when changing bands. You may, depending on your antenna, you'll have to change position of jumper leads, type things, coil taps and whip leads. And that tends to be easier on some and others, some antennas and others. I mean, again, this may not be applicable to everyone, but does the antenna tolerate relatively high powers, QRO? In other words, up to say 100 watts. That you can make use of your typical mobile rigs, your FT857s, IC 7000 shop like. And also, I think what seems to be the most popular with solar operators as a QRO rig, which is the FT899. But all quite slimline and a little bit on the heavy side, each of these, but people do use them for outdoors. And of course, they've got 100 watts and you've got a chunky battery to power that. Why not use it? Okay. So what the first two of those antennas I mentioned, the 1899 and the HFJ 350M, both of these are called base load coil whip antennas. Basically, it's what you've got. You've got a base load coil and you've got a telescopic whip to go with it. Both are It's an overestimation. It's more like 100 grams each for some of these. Really, really light. And although you can get some optional coils to get you down to the lower MF bands, and obviously that has still a bit of weight as well, but not much. So here you have some sort of sense of scale. Let's see the 1899T. It's given some proportion with a small QRP rig, a Craft KX2, I think it is. So yeah, it's the one you've got, isn't it? Which is basically something you can hold in the palm of your hand. And you see the coil, base coil there on its side. It's about a foot long, and you've got the whip as well. That collapses down about 20 centimeters, but extends up to about 120 centimeters, so a bit over a meter, 4 feet. So you've got the base coil. Funnily enough, both of these antennas seem to use the same telescopic whip, bought by the same manufacturer. They're both the same length, about 120 odd centimeters. Both are easy to plug into a QRP rig. That's what they're really designed for. And you can, this is the 1899 again. You can use it, on park bench style, which I like to call it, just sort of the rig flat down, or maybe tilts up a little bit, but the antenna plugged directly into the socket and going straight up at a right angle. And if you really want to do it as walkie-talkie style, which is possible with the other craft rig as well, which is what this guy's using, I think. But plug the antenna directly into the socket and have it vertically straight up. Use the rig as a walkie-talkie, and this guy's got a fish mic with it, but with the X6100JU, it's got its own PTT button and inbuilt microphone.
So is the KX2.
Oh, is it? Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, this guy's obviously using it. I'm pretty sure it's a KX2 using
Yeah,
it.
that is KX2. So it's obviously, like I say, got this microphone.
Right.
It has got a built-in microphone as well.
Yeah, it's a pretty good nifty thing, isn't it? And you use the jumper leads going back up to the top photo there. You've got various positions for various bands. You've got your number one slot, which you keep plugged in all the time pretty much. And then the different, there's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on this one. So that what the jumper lead does is bypass some of the coils, so that the higher the frequency you want to use, say 6 meters, something like that, you put on the top coil, slot, top hole, and then most of the coil is bypassed. But if you want, say, 40 meters, you obviously use the probably you'd have the jumper between the number one and number two slots. Some cases, like the buddy pole, you just don't even have the bypass thing at all to get the MF band that you want. Anyway, the jumper lead, it's one of the flimsier parts of it. They're 2 meter banana plugs on each end, and you've got a choice of sockets to give you the inductance that you need. So the idea for setting yourself up on a particular band that you want is get your little instructions. I'll just wrap my instructions around here, keep it all together. But it will say, so for 20 meters, have the number one, have the plug into number one, and also number 3, and have the whip out 48 inches, something like that, for which is the maximum length to get what you want, to get on 20 meters, for instance. And also instructions on how to further extend the whip. And you tend to, even when you've got the coils, when you've got lots of choice to the inductance setting, Generally, the fine tuning is always done by the leads and the telescopic whips. Coarse tuning is done with the, well, in this case, very coarse tuning with the where you put in the plugs. And also there'll be a little thing that says how far, how many kilohertz it changes by each centimetre that you move the antenna or the whip, and that will vary between bands. Won't be the same for each band. I guess the thing is with these micro antennas, most people will be using those antennas with QRP rigs. So we 10 watts RF power. And for example, it's probably the most popular one in recent years, almost had a monopoly on the market really, was the FT817 or 818. Maximum power you can get out of that 6 watts. Yeah, 1.8. So really, I mean, you're at a kind of disadvantage. You've got a small and very compromised antenna and a very low power rig. So it's a bit of a scissors effect. But the thing is, you can get results with this if you know what you're doing, if you do it at the right time, and given the right sort of conditions. So one thing I'd suggest for people who do try this, I mean, this is the thing with QRP operation generally, regardless of what activity you've got, you're fighting battles that you can win and not going after stations that you're probably not going to have a chance of getting.
There's two other things as well, isn't there? You know, it's force general is very low.
Yeah, that's one of the pluses.
And also, you've got people looking for you.
You're stealing my thunder.
Oh, sorry.
That's my thunder. Yeah, so one thing to do is concentrate on the high band so that it's as less of a compromise as possible. And you're using more of the whip to get resonance than you are of the coil. The other thing, I think this is really, certainly in my experience, QRP operation can be a real, well, it just gets you nowhere when propagation conditions are poor. What I mean by that is that the geomagnetic conditions are very unstable. So the big stations will get through, but the smaller ones, which are sort of marginal, will be really hit by this. And you'll just call and call and call, you think, to a loud station, and they just won't come back to you. Whereas another day, they'll come straight through. And that's one of the reasons for that. The other thing is to sort of look at propagation quite carefully, know where the sweet spots are on the various bands that you want to use. So for instance, here, you use a tool here like PropQuest, and that will tell you, for instance, where that ellipse is. Pretty much during that part of the day, the 10-meter band is open for probably between 2,000, 3,000 kilometers. That would be a sweet spot for 10 meters. So you'd probably speak to Bulgarian, Russian stations, etc. You may hear some ones closer in, but you're more likely to get people in that sweet spot region. So I guess be thoughtful of those things. Also, I mean, it seems pretty obvious, but use narrowband mode. So CW, and if you really have to, FT8, and you'll maximise your chances. The other is what you and the stations will chase after stroke P or also QRP stations. They'll go after them and pick them up, or because they've got an extra long call sign or some tail end of it, and someone might hear you and try and work you. A lot of people take pity on QRP operators as well. But yeah, this is where you're really getting in. If you're doing what's on the air or parts on the air, and you post your alerts, then you post your alerts and people will be searching for you. They'll be going out of their way to, and knowing where you are, and we'll probably tune around and wait for you to come in. So that's one way to maximise the thing. The thing is with operating, generally, most people work the louder station. And if it's a spectrum scope, the price split, they'll tune to that first. And a little trace of oh, they probably won't be able to hear me anyway, so forget about them. But with Poser and so they know where you are, what sort of station you are, and also they get awards for it if they work you. I mean, I showed the picture of the guy doing the walkie-talkie style and the park bench style. But I think if you can do something a bit better than that, and it's easy to do, then all the better. If you can get the antenna, even with a vertical, it's possible off the ground, and that may mean, sorry, that may mean using a camera tripod, which I'll. They sell right near the super whips and the mega whips. Yeah.
You don't need a counterpoise with these antennas.
You do. That's the point I make. They're both of these are on the bands that they're designed for quarter wave antennas, so they don't need a counterpoise or some sort of ground if you can.
Well, I mean,
Connect this, if you're in a car, you could connect the set to the after set to the actual bodywork of the car.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think my car body to actually make it all stuff right is really is amazingly effective.
Just on that, I think with the mag mounts on the car, with HF frequency, they're not so good. So yeah, if you were to the proper point,
Yeah, that's right. Yes,
that's another topic. But yeah, I guess people can bring it up later. Yeah, so for example, I use a lightweight tripod, my plastic tripod, and get the base of the antenna about 1.5 to 2 meters above the ground. This is it. And by this way, you're keeping the counterpoise at least 1/20th of the wavelength above the ground, which is supposed to be the minimum height before it starts coupling into the ground and start losing effectiveness. Just something to remember, and there's my thing. I'm also turning up here. I'll talk about what it said. Yeah, I think the thing about the elevated counterpoise, I think once they become plural, they become radials, don't they? That's but they're the same thing. On each band, so you'd have to change that. And unless it's really slow.
It does take a while for it to catch up.
Right. Okay. Yeah, but the way around that is to use a tunable counterpoise, and these are sold by most famous ones, I guess, are by Wonder. Anything super or Wonder or Mega should be with the Skyhawks. In this case, these seem to work, and so you can, as example one, just a little. Just quickly, that's my setup. It's a bit overdone. I don't always use it, but the tripod, then a monopod with a bit of guying, and then the antenna and the counterpoise with the little tunable counterpoise, the drooping away. So it's got a bit of height, and if you can tie it off to a nearby tree like that, that's available. But a bit high, and you just click this, turns up. You just turn the little knob on the whenever it appears. Yeah, but essentially these Yeah, there it is. It's basically just a tiny little box, like a matchbox size box, and with a knob on it, and it's got positions from A to L, like you've got an inductance on a manual tuner, and it allows you to. It's only about 5 meters in length, but it allows you to get down to the 60-meter band.
And you tune that to beat the receive.
Yes. Yeah. So all I do, I mean, the thing is, you've got you see the banana plug there. You've got the banana plug clips in the alligator clip. You just use the banana plug it. If you've got an S209, plug it into that, and then say put it on the 20-meter band, and then stick through it. And also, if it's an idea, note it down. So got a Sharpie pen and wrote down for instance, on the 20-meter band here, it's the eye position on the tunable, and 6 sections out on the whip, and et cetera, for each of the bands. But yeah, for 7 megs, the position's B, for 10 it's F, and then 14 times, so BFI. Nice, easy way to remember it. Yeah. So it's a great little receiver antenna. If you just want to go out SWL, you can use it for that. And I just fits into the socket quite easily if you've got a SO209. But there is a way to actually get it into a BNC as well, which I'll say something to. Yeah, so you tune around, see which letter gives you the loudest noise effectively. And just on the SWL profile of the bandwidth that people mistakenly call, this is for the internet. So this is someone with an M0TJU, and it's performance. This is across the 20-meter band from start to finish, and you see it bottoms at 1.2, but it really stays under 2 across the whole band. So you shouldn't really need to retune it. And just that picture in the center bottom there, that's the under the bonnet basically of the one-to-one voice thing. Just a toroid, and you've got the different taps for each of the letters. You can see there. So yeah, very clever. Useful. Okay, just looking at some of the price. Looking around for each of these, 1899 is, and still not sure why, but both pretty much do the same job. They cover from 80 meters to 6. The FT, even the small size, the FT, the 1899 can actually 80 meters and need an extra coil, but I don't think you don't expect to work Peru on it. Looking at your maximum output power, 20. I'm assuming this is rated for SSB. So 50% duty cycle, you're only using peak power half the time effectively. And it's really designed to look at instructions for use with the FT8 818. And the charger goes up to 6 months anyway. With the 350M, it allows 7 and 50 megs, 100 watts SSB. So that's quite chunky, and down to 80 meters, and you've got another coil for that, 75 watts. So you can use a bit of power to make up for the compromise, if you've got power, of course. Just on to the connectors, I think this is where the biggest difference between these two antennas. The 1899 is a BNC, so it's pretty standard for all QRP rigs pretty much. You know, make 17705 and 6100, for instance. Just some click and bayonet fit basically. Here's your example. This guy, this guy in Atlanta, in Florida. He turns up. You can see he uses the antenna straight out on the 817 straight up, a bit like the walkie-talkie style. The point I'm trying to make here is there's quite a bit of leverage if you sort of bent the antenna from the top, for instance. And the BNC sockets aren't always that strong, not really built for stuff like that. But you can, particularly for the IC705, is to get a reinforcer. So you plug this adapter thing, and it gives you a right angle, but there's not much pressure on the actual socket itself.
Some sort of beams do that. They do.
Do they?
These adapters, don't they?
Yeah, I think a few people do. Yeah, got a bit of a choice in the market there. And yeah, so we're in the screen now. Yeah, so looking at the 350, not 305, 350N. Yeah, there's a big difference. It's got a PL259 plug, and that's obviously not common to QRP rigs, so you have to use an adapter for a lot of them. But they are tough. Yeah, not as easy as well. You've got to screw them on, push them in and out of there. They're not made to be taken in and out of all the time. The thing is, it's a better connection. It's a bit tougher, a bit more rugged. It's not likely to snap the connection if you bend it over a bit. So these are common, obviously, in mobile rigs, and also mag mounts, which we were talking about before. And you can actually put it on a mag mount and get some reasonable performance, particularly if you work it to the carved body, not just plonk it on the end.
Yeah.
Into the roof. So out of these two micro antennas, what would be my favourite? Well, I choose the 350N, basically because I've got the option. It's got the option of high power, because I do have high power mobile rig, which I could use it on. But the real thing is, it's just solid. You know, it's particularly if you're putting on like a tripod or something like that. It's having the solid mount, just doesn't wobble around or anything like that. It's quite tough. The other thing as well, I mean, it's got the 80 meter coil, but it's also got a 160 meter coil as well. I mean, that's probably going to be a bit of a dummy load, really. If you're using QRP, but for SWL, I think that might be good. I haven't seen any reviews, but you know, why not? And sure, putting the poke in the eye of the chopstick, isn't it? And also, I think this is probably my favourite bit about it is it's got this little thing where you can clip the counterpoise onto the base, or you can use a banana plug to put it in, or just tie a clip around it or something. That's not on the 1899. Not a big thing, but it's something. And also the other point is that it's actually got the frequencies marked on the side where you put the plugs in with the 350. You can see. Okay. All right. So moving on. This is the third one I'm talking about. Come down to various brands. It may be under Chilligans in some places. The JPC 12 vertical whip antenna. So it's actually quite big. Again, it's another quarter wave whip, but it's much bigger than the two I've described before. And another difference is it's center loaded, which actually makes it more efficient for the length that you've got, length that you use, than it was if it was base loaded like the other two. Like the other two, it does cover between 40 to 6 meters. Unfortunately, it doesn't have 60 or 80. I don't think you can even get 80-meter coils. But peak waters as stand did manage to get it to 60 by a little trick that he did. And it's also QRO, 100 watts tolerance. So here at the bottom pictures, the sort of the base, the sort of lower bit, then the coil and the whip pop in each of those three photos. And the top right is your just what it looks when you unpack it, basically. The cost, obviously you expect it to be more expensive than the other two, but not greatly more, considering what you get. £170 at the moment from Lynchies. So all up it goes to about a bit over 4 meters and collapses down to a little over a foot and weighs only a bit over a kilo. So it's nice, easy enough to carry, not too heavy to carry. Just looking at the feed point, so that's right on the ground, and that's put on top of a spike. It's not an earth spike; it's just a ground spike, just to attach it to. And you know, that's great if the ground is okay for it. You know, it's soft enough to put in, or it's not too soft. Yeah, very, very small cross section, and all of that's dominated by the radials that you put out, however you want to put them. The pack, you've got so look at the top right and top and bottom left. There's your base thing. That's where it's got the SO209 socket, and that goes on top of the ground spike, which is there. And there are your arms. So that's sort of covering the lower bit of the antenna above the base. And they just screw together quite easily. And then you've got the single coil, because it's only a vertical, only one coil. And again, that goes in the middle between the metallic arms, the thick black arms, and the whip, telescopic whip, which is about 2.5 meters long. So you're getting quite a sizable antenna, getting to roughly a quarter of a wave on 20, not quite there, but on certain way. And they provide a counterpoise, but that's just one strand. It's a multi-strand, but a single bit of connector. So it just goes, it's just one length effectively. I think it's about 5 meters. But generally what you do, you put a radial system in, probably at least 4 ground radials of a quarter of a wave, roughly, of the band you want to use as a rule of thumb. So just looking at a bit more. It doesn't take too long to erect. You have it up and all the radials out in all about 5 minutes. 5 minutes flat. You might think so, but it's actually quite tolerant of windy conditions, tolerate up to 40-mile-an-hour gusts. It's only as tall as it is, it doesn't have much of a sail area, so it can handle some pretty chunky winds. Look at the SWR profile. So that's your top right. Sorry, it's not a really good picture, but essentially that little purple strip in the middle, that's the entire 20-meter band. And if you look at that, you just have to tweak it a bit, and it'll be under two 1 to 2 SWR bandwidth across the whole of the band very easily. Just some of the lower SWR ratings that people have got, you know, 1 to 1.4 and 1 to 1.5 and 40 and 20. Pretty good enough. I think unless you want to really stress out your power amplifier by doing FT8 round the clock, and you want pretty much 1-to-1, it's not bad at all. Being a vertical, it's good for DX, depending on what ground you put it on. Has a very low radiation angle, so if you can get this close to salt water or something like that, it'll be fantastic. Just in terms of tuning, So you can see the coil on the bottom right there. They're about 10 centimeters, about 4 inches long. And you see that there's a slider that goes along the coil. It's on the very right-hand side now. And you see the 7 trillion, the 14 trillion. I think they're supposed to be 7 megs and the 14 meg bands. It's direct Chinese translation. But you've got markers there on the coils for those 2 bands. But generally, the idea is to, if you want to tune it, follow the instruction by putting where the coil should be and then adjusting the whips. One thing that Pete Waters suggested is put the telescopic whip all the way out. I think you're supposed to do it anyway, but adjust the coil so it's just below. Don't know how long, but yeah, in reasonable distance below the band that you want, and then you can just sort of lower the mast, sort of bring it up a bit. That's the way to do it. But I mean, it is coarse. I mean, one click along each of those lines is about 200 kilohertz on the 14 meg band, which is 2/3 of the band, basically. Yeah, so it's really very coarse. Yeah, that's what I was saying. It can go lower than 40 meters. What Pete Waters did is that if the coil is placed on the right at the bottom, just above the feed, you can do it. And the problem is when you've got a coil at the base, it's more effective in terms of adding your inductance that you need, or whatever, but it actually creates a bit more in terms of loss of efficiency. But he could do it, and he could get into this 5.3 range that is 60 meter band. Generally, there's no coil required above 18.7 megahertz, which on a 17 meter band, but you're not adding much coil if you're on the 17 meter band anyway. So it is very efficient on 17 meters and up, in other words. And for 10 meters, 6 meters, and 4 meters, you only need the whips. And probably the arms as well, I'm sure. So it is a very good antenna, particularly for the price. And if you can get a decent radial system out, you can get, I mean, I think the thing with ground radials, the more the merrier. And distance doesn't matter so much, as I understand it. Just get lots of them out there and at least a quarter wavelength long. I think the thing is, one thing about these antennas, the cross section is small, yeah, so you can put them out in the park and all that sort of stuff. But the problem is you get every sort of spaniel or whatever running along and it's going to run into your counterboys. They're not going to see them on the ground. Whereas if you can get the radials, you can get them out up high and the radials sort of drooping down to a point above the ground, they'll be more effective. And you know, your golden retriever is going to run through them, which is really important when you're operating in parks, definitely. Right. So just to finish, just looking at the buddy pole, which is the one I've got. I don't have that previous antenna, so I don't know why I'm commenting on it really, but it is quite good. But the buddy pole, which is what I own, just to put it together while I talk. It's certainly the heaviest and the most expensive of the antennas I've talked about. But what it offers is versatility, and it can be made into various types of dipoles. So, for example, horizontal, which is your top right one there, the Y-shaped if necessary, or a sloper, which is the one at the bottom right there. And also you can turn it vertical. And actual mount, which I'll show you. can actually mount them above the ground and have your radius above the ground as well, which I think is a bonus.
Quick question, with that being a vast area like you in theory probably wouldn't really need a ground plane wire, for that you can use it without.
Well, if it's a vertical,
If it's a vertical,
Yeah.
I agree with you do
Yeah.
want a ground plane, but
although
if you use it as a horizontal dipole.
what you can do is you can have a vertical and actually use have the whips and the arms coming out at 45 degrees.
All right.
Makes it a bit unstable.
Yes.
And also if you have the radial sloping down,
That's good.
but not touching the ground still,
Yeah, angle's better, yeah.
you do get certainly much better SWR profile. And
DX is welcome.
Yeah. the lower angle of radiation as well. Yeah. Rated 250 watts, so that's quite good. You can use something like an FGDX 5000. But I don't know if you want to take that portable.
Well, not exactly. Certainly in my case, it's certainly not portable anyway.
He put an engine on it.
Fire shirt, but maybe. Yeah, it's got. I'll show you. I've got the picture of mine, but on the screen for people on the WebEx. But I might as well show you the thing. But this is about the tricks. It's got the standard ones come with a pair of arms, so that they plug into your feed point. And you've got loading coils. So they go between the arms and the whips. And one thing that I put a photo of these one of these on WhatsApp just a few minutes ago. I don't have a picture here, but they're similar to the what the Midel one has, and you've got the colour markers. The difference is it's not a slider.
No, I'm asking, does it go that way or does it go that way?
Whatever you want.
Semaphore.
So you've got coloured markers for different.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not always the same on each side. So this is for the braid side, the dipole is for the radiating side, and it's not always the same, not exactly the same length, the same core settings. But the instructions will tell you. You've got the whips on the other thing, which are the ones that you get. Yeah. Comes with two arms and two whips. And they're if I can poke someone's eye out with this.
Official rod.
That's his standard whip. So you've got your arms. Well, not really much else to say. Just there's some of those spare clips. Yeah. And that just to show an example of the uneven ground. See how it's at the beach there in sand dune or something. We can do that with the JPC 12. And just here's some general sort of stuff. Comes up. Closer look at the coil. And the Versity sort of in a bit more detail. So here's my pointer now. And also, this is what the picture I took on the weekend. Just showed live what can go on, and you can see I've pulled that a little bit out.
So doubles, it's a handy little pointer.
a little laser beam.
Laser pointed up.
The laser. Yeah.
It's old school.
That's Stephen. But this shows that you can have it as a horizontal. This is for 2 meters. You set up for 2 meters. and then you can have as a right angle, which you can just see there. It takes 2 seconds to change that. And here's an SWR profile, just at the bottom. That's actually 500 hertz, kilohertz. So it's way past the ends of the top and the bottom of the band, but it still stays well with below
Which is
to the 1. So it's quite a flat profile. And I think the thing is with as opposed to a very sort of thin strand of wire, the thicker metal allows a bit more tolerance. If SWR would say, so the beams